it gets morbid when you're surrounded by this stuff and you see, okay, man, you walk outside, hey, you hear about, D getting shot? Hey, you heard about, you don't even want to go to the barbershop because you just hear them talking about somebody got shot last night. And it's just, you don't want to go outside after a while. And it was difficult to handle, man. Like I said, I just didn't even want to deal with life for a moment. I just wanted to kind of stay to myself and and grow mold, man. It's just like, look, I just want to sit here and not do much. I didn't want to even play basketball. That was, if you know me personally, that's far left. I didn't care. I didn't, I had scholarship offers. I didn't care. That didn't mean anything to me. It was very difficult to handle, man, but I had to find a way to use that situation to grow from it.
This is the Alden Report.
Today's episode is brought to you in part by Wicked Happy. The way you live your life depends on your outlook, and theirs is simple. Be Wicked Happy. Wicked Happy provides you with apparel to make you smile. So if you want to be wicked happy and you want to look wicked cool, then visit wickedhappy.com, and at checkout, enter in the code RADIO for an additional 15% off your entire order. Again, visit wickedhappy.com, apparel to make you smile.
This is the Alden Report.
All right. Well, my name is Mike Alden. We are here in Blue Bay Studios. I always say I'm rocking my 99-cent glasses. Unfortunately, I'm actually not rocking my 99-cent glasses. These ones are a little bit more expensive, but they help me see. And apparently, as you get older, this whole eyesight thing starts to, control your life. So I'm super excited for my next guest. My next guest is a former professional basketball player. He's a best-selling author. He's a seven-figure entrepreneur. He's a TEDx speaker, and his background is remarkable, and some of the things that he's had to overcome. So I'm super excited to have him here, talk a little bit about his life, what he's done, and what he's also doing for people as well. So please help me welcome Joel Green. Joel, thanks for being here, man.
Mike, thanks so much for having me on, man. I really appreciate it.
So let's start with the background. So seems like you grew up in a kind of difficult situation. You saw some pretty bad things as a kid. Let's start there. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Philadelphia, in North Philly, to be exact. If you're from Philly, you have to say exactly which part you're from. So I can't just say Philadelphia, but from North Philly, and
Wait, so hold on. So I have a pretty good friend that's from, and I think that's where he's from. So is North Philly like the tougher side of Philly, or I don't know?
It's always been looked at as North and South.
Okay.
West is in between. There's no East Philly, just to give you a heads up. But you have your West Philly, you have your South, you have North, and North. I think is probably the toughest side. It's pretty crazy for unnecessary reasons, but that's where I grew up, and saw some things at an early age that I would hope that no one has to see and witness and hear. Things like that. 6 years old, I was 10 feet away from a shooting. I was the only person there outside of the kid that got shot and the two shooters, and I thought I would be shot next. And fortunately, I got away from that incident. And I grew up in an abandoned house in North Philly. We lived right next to another abandoned house where a homeless guy lived, and I wore donated clothes. That was my environment. That was my life. This was during the crack era of the 80s and early 90s. So you only imagine what was going on in that area, walking past these colorful crack vials each day, not even knowing as a 5-year-old or so what these things are, just picking them up and just having no clue what the thing, what I was surrounded by. And pretty difficult, childhood in that regard, man. But it helped me to develop a callous in regards to life, difficulties, challenges, obstacles. And I complain less. I feel more, than the average person because I was humbled early on. So I'm just grateful so many times to still be here. I'm grateful to have an opportunity to do X, Y, and Z. So I've had to teach myself to not complain about a whole lot. And I lost one of my brothers, as a teenager. It was just, just going through these different things, man. I just really had to find ways to overcome life.
Man, so again, we talked a little bit earlier before we went live. I tell people I grew up pretty tough, and I did. Mom's HIV positive, stepfather died of AIDS. Let's have a contest, see who has the most fucked up upbringing. But I tell people all the time that I did grow up really tough, right? But there's a great book called How Children Succeed, right? And they talk about kids growing up and basically in areas like yourself where the stress level is actually so high because you may not even be aware of it at that age, but you are literally fearful of your life and dying. And so it had to have been extremely stressful. So I want to just back up a little bit more and talk a little bit about being sick and seeing that. So you're 6 years old. Give me more of the details. Like you're 6 years old. You're in. Obviously, it sounds like just a really tough neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Did you? Yeah, I'd love to just hear the actual circumstances. Like, did some guy? Was it random? Was there a fight? What happened?
There was no fight. This was completely random, though. I after school, I'll give you the gist of what happened. So I have one of my brothers. He would get in trouble pretty often, and we went to the same elementary school, and we already had a whole deal set up to where whenever he has detention, I then go to one of my friend's house across the street from the school, and I have to then come back to the school by about 4:30 or so, meet him in the main office, and then we walk home together. So this was one of those days where he had detention yet again, and so I went to my friend's house, played Nintendo for a little bit. This is around 90, 91.
Oh yeah, Nintendo. What were you playing?
It was probably Contra or something, man.
Contra, like, up, down, left, right, A, B, A, B, A, start, baby.
Exactly. So I mean, that was our game, man. So I was probably over there playing Contra or something, and I decided, I told him, all right, I have to leave, and grab my book bag and begin heading toward my elementary school. Now, our schoolyard was connected to a high school yard called Strawberry Mansion, and you can actually walk underneath the school because it was raised on pillars. I'm just, I've done this plenty of times, man, and right around 4:30, all the students are already pretty much are home. The only thing that's taking place during this time was students running laps around the school, I guess the track team. And so I'm walking home and I see these two guys I've never seen before. I remember them clear as day. I can fully describe exactly what these guys look like. One of them called one of the kids that was running around the school over to them. And it was one of my brother's friends. My oldest brother went to Strawberry Mansion High School, so I knew his friends. And they called him over, and I'm just being a nosy kid, just kind of looking at everything taking place. And I'm right there. It's just the two guys, the two shooters, and the kid they called over, and it's me. I'm, no more than 10, 15 feet away from them. And they called him over. He kind of jogged over to them. And next thing I know, one of the guys that had a black jacket on took a gun out. It was no words, really. They called him over. He said, hey, what's up? And they and shot him. And the sound, I'll never forget, I'm 6 years old, man. I froze for a moment and tried to run at the same time and just began running away, but I had to run past them as this was going on, and just the sound bounced off of the pillars and the low roof that we were walking under. It was scary. And the entire time I'm just trying to make it to my school door. Again, it was a connecting schoolyard. I thought I was going to get shot in the back the entire time. It was such a fast moment that slowed down at the same time. It was strange, man. It was scary. It was the scariest thing I've ever witnessed. Thinking I was gonna get shot, and it's at 6 years old to have to deal with that it was traumatizing for a moment, man.
Wow, man. Yeah, thanks for sharing that moment. Because we're actually launching another podcast called From the Storage Locker, where we're actually, and I think I'm gonna actually probably feature some of this on that one as well. Talking to people about kind of their difficult times, but really their rock bottom moments and the things that they happened and what they did to overcome them. And I really want to hear those stories. I really want to hear what it was like. So you get to the school door, you get in, then what?
So once I get in, I remember once I got in, I fell back against the door. I'm gonna give you the full detail. I fell back against the door, kind of relieved, and then I just sprinted up the stairs. There was a stairwell right there. And I just sprinted up to main office. I just sat down really quick. and just waited for my brother. And he probably came in no more than 3 to 5 minutes later. I just sat there quiet. I just, was just waiting for him, just in shock, to be honest. And the moment he came in, he had to kind of sign out with the secretary or something like that, saying, "Hey,
I did my detention."
So you know the
I know.
process.
Oh, I know. I've been
right. So you know the process. So I'm like, so once he signed out, this is it got even crazier. So once he began to sign out, you hear screaming coming from the hall. I never forget Miss Douglas. I heard, one of the teachers at the elementary school like yelling. She had a real strong voice already. And I just remember hearing, "Oh God." And I hear like a male teacher saying something as well coming from the hall. And they helped the kid that got shot. He followed my tracks into the school apparently. And I just remember seeing this kid walking he had a white t-shirt on. It was a big red circle on his abdomen. It was just blood. And they helped him in, and me and my brother just staring at what's taking place. And they, how there's always the desk on a meeting that separates you from the secretaries.
Right. Yeah.
So they laid him on top of there, and my brother Eric said, "Come on, let's go. Let's get out of here."
Right. And
I never forget, on the way downstairs and outside to go out to outside of school, he's just like coming up with all these things like, "Man, I wonder what happened." That's crazy, just saying all these different scenarios. And I kept my mouth shut. I'm like, I'm not saying nothing. And probably halfway home, I said, "Man, I know I saw it." And he said, "What you saw?" I said, I saw exactly. I was right there. And so I told him exactly what happened. And he said, "Don't tell anybody." He said, "Don't tell anybody." And we knew how it was in that neighborhood, man. If you told somebody and they found out you witnessed it, or all of a sudden you're now a part of it, he was like, "Don't tell nobody."
Right.
We don't want anybody to know that we know. And it's to know that at 6 years old, and my brother was 10 years old at the time, he was like in fourth grade or so. To have to think that way at such an early age is nuts, man. To fear, again, like you said, to have to fear for your life, at any point in your life is crazy, but let alone at that age, it sucks to think about, in hindsight. And I feel for the kids that are still living that in these inner cities, to where it's like, keep your mouth shut, or else, your family, your whole house is going to be in jeopardy. Because I know they saw me, and that's why I kept telling them, "I don't want to go to school tomorrow." They saw me, and I got home and it all hit me all at once, and I just began crying. I called my mom crying, saying, I don't want to live here anymore. Can we move? They saw me. I don't want to get shot." And, just was afraid, man. I didn't want to go outside the house for a little bit. I'm like, they saw me. I know they saw me.
Wow, man. So yeah, 6 years old. I think about, I could try to bring it back into my life. I think about traumatic events that have happened in my life, and too, at my age, they stay with you. Like you said, you could still remember Mrs. Douglas, and you remember what it looks like, and you see their faces, and the trauma that you went through is extremely difficult. We're on with Joel Green again. You probably didn't expect me to ask him all these questions, but he is a best-selling author. He's a TEDx speaker. He's a former professional basketball player. But I really wanted to get into his upbringing and what he went through as a young child, as an adult, and the difficult times throughout life. Because a lot of people like to show the success. They like to show, "Hey, look at this, look at this book. This guy's a professional basketball player. Look at all these things that he's done. 7-figure entrepreneur, doing stuff with big businesses." That's all great, and he's doing it. But I also wanted to show where he came from, because a lot of people just like to feature the end result. And I like to show, kind of how he got this. So if you'd like some more information about Joel, you can just go to joelbgreen.com. You also can check out his Instagram. It's J-A-Y Green PLT, J-A-Y Green PLT. Check him out, see what he's doing. Obviously, you can pick up his book as well. You can get right to his book from there. So let's stay here for a little bit. So you say you grew up in an abandoned home. Like, what do you mean by that? Like, was it like literally like your address didn't exist and there was no electricity and running water, or like what do you mean by that?
So before we moved into it, it was abandoned.
Okay.
right? And it was still, graffiti everywhere, all over the walls. My sister room, the entire time we lived there, her room had graffiti all over the walls. And one of my brother's rooms told me it was just graffiti everywhere, all over. We wrote on the walls, we drew on the walls and our parents didn't even mind because it was already just writing on our walls anyway. Part of our stairs were missing. Part of the stairs we would kind of play hopscotch. It was like playing hopscotch around the holes of the stairs. We made fun of it, but it was literally an abandoned home. It was called a dollar house back in Philly back in the day, to where you can just literally get the house. It's abandoned. A dollar home. So our house the house next to us it caught on fire a couple years before that point. It just never was fixed up, and we were able to get into it. My entire time there as a child, I just always remember my dad and my uncles and my grandfathers just working on something. Just it was always hammers going on the weekend, and it was just always something being worked on. A couple of the windows were still boarded up while we lived there. We had floors that we didn't use, like it was just uninhabited areas of the house. And it was literally an abandoned home when we moved into it, and it still had many abandoned areas in the home that was just, you couldn't even touch, use. It was a lot of holes in the house. We had mice that would get in. We didn't know where they got in from, but they're probably that hole over there. Or our cat that we had, she came back pregnant multiple times. And we're like, how is she getting out of the house? It's
right.
It's like, what's going on? But that was what it was, man. I didn't realize at the time how difficult things were.
Yeah.
That was just my life. I mean, when my parents would bring home these trash bags, like the hefty bags, we would sprint over to my parents because we knew we had quote unquote new clothes.
Yep.
Right. And we would be excited about it. We were hype about it. We would literally have, how what was it? Like the cartoon sweatshirts back in the day, were pretty hot, like a pretty hot thing, Mickey Mouse and all that stuff. So we would get these sweatshirts out and, all these colorful things, 80s and 90s colors.
Yeah.
And to feel good about it. And, I was the youngest of four, so I would wear all the hand-me-downs, and I was cool with it, man. And it was my life. But as I began seeing that there was another side, I'm like, man, we're really struggling. Like it was tough, man. But it built me. It built me up. And, even going through what I went through at 6 years old, at 9 years old, I had a knife pulled out on me and called the N-word for the first time. Because I was in the wrong neighborhood, apparently. But I handled that because of what I went through at 6. So, I had a college for trauma, you know what I mean? Which is not an ideal college to have, but, God knew I needed it, apparently. You know what I mean? So it was like, what, let me put him through these things, but let me allow him to escape from it at the same time. It was life, man.
It's a bunch of interesting things that you said. It's funny too, because I look back on the way I grew up, and I look back on it, I'm like, you know what, I don't know. I don't think it really would have changed much. Because like you said, as a kid, you might not be totally aware that you're really poor, right?
Right.
But there was definitely points in my life, when the Salvation Army came to subsidize, Thanksgiving and Christmas, or Christmas gifts were, obviously not necessarily meant for me, but it was pretty obvious. But yeah, I mean, it's really interesting too, as a young child, where you're not really totally aware. And then you do get, like you said, I guess you get to a point and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, they're really struggling. But man, there's so much I want to kind of unpack from that too. But one of the things you touched upon too is your father and your uncle, fixing up stuff, and they knew obviously where they were and what they were going through. But the other interesting part about what you said too is this pride of ownership I talk about. Hey, look, it might have been an abandoned building, but it was theirs, and they were just trying to make it a habitable place, right?
Exactly. I mean, that's exactly what they did for us. Me and my, one of my brothers and my sister, we were talking recently. This was probably about a year ago. It was like, man, they really didn't. They didn't let us. Well, again, I was the youngest, so they really protected my mind. My older sister, my older brother, and even the middle brother. They knew more than I did, but they did everything they could to not make us feel poor. Like we were broke, man. We had, all we had was kerosene heaters, and we would have to get hot water. They gave us pots, and I would be able to stay back because I was the little one, but they would give my siblings pots. We'll go to the next door neighbors. Neighbors will give us water. We'll, hot water, and we'll sit on top of the kerosene heaters to stay hot. Like that was a part of just the flow that we had going on. We had, all six of us had to sleep in the same bed sometimes when we only had enough kerosene for one heater, it'd be the one in our parents' room, and we're no small folks. Like, I'm 6'8" now, but my brother at the time, my oldest brother, he was already like a 6-footer, and my other, like we're not a small family, but all six of us would be in the bed, man.
So, your parents, what did your parents do for a living? How did they try to support you? What was their kind of their life like when they were trying to like raise you guys?
But they're pastors, man. They're preachers, and that's one thing that helped us out a whole lot as far as the mentality, the faith, the belief of we can't escape this, like my dad, he sold insurance back in the day during his time, and my mom, she was a secretary, at an insurance company. It was just like they did whatever they could, man, to support us, to raise us right. But more than anything else, they just instilled a mentality in all of us to where we can do X, Y, Z. Like nobody can stop you. Here's what happened historically to us as a people, but here's what you can get beyond, as far as moving toward your dreams, your desires, your goals, and all that stuff. And they were super intentional about that. I tell people often the amount of documentaries that I watched before the age of 8 years old, like it's not even funny. We would sit down as a family and watch documentaries, and they just wanted to impart wisdom into us, knowledge, and just a belief system to where we just knew we can escape whatever you're involved in.
So yeah, man, you were really fortunate and lucky then, right, to have parents like that, right? Because there were a lot of kids in that same neighborhood that their parents were the crackheads, right?
Exactly.
And so that's awesome that they were able to do that. My mom was pretty similar. Like she was actually the Sunday school teacher,
Gotcha.
and she was always positive too. And I remember like talking to her, I'm like, Mom, why is it always so hard? Why is it always going to be this way? As you get older, and that leads me kind of like to my question about the adversity that you went through and the difficult times. In fact, I was reading in your bio that you actually still go back to that house that you grew up in. When you look back on your life as you sit today, and we're going to get into all the stuff you're doing, which is awesome. Do you feel like those difficult times really made you the person that you are today? And would you want anything to change? I'm guessing, I don't know. I'm guessing you probably didn't want to witness that horrific crime. But other than that, would you really want it any different?
The only thing I would want to be different is the fact that one of my brothers, traumatically died. That him passing, was difficult. Still is difficult. I was a teenager at that point. He was only 25. And that would be the only thing. Obviously, from that situation, I've used that as motivation for myself to excel, to succeed. I do know that much of my success had come from that occurring. I'm just gonna be honest with you. The moment he passed, I shut down for a moment. I didn't want to even deal with life anymore. I didn't want to talk to anybody.
What was it? How did he pass?
He drowned. He drowned.
Fuck.
And he was away with his fiance when it happened, and it just was like.
And I'm sure you were like, of all the craziness, the way we grew up, all the shit we've gone through, crime, drugs, violence, guns, the whole thing, and he drowns.
And he drowned. He's one that's been shot at and all these things. He escaped all those things. He has been shot at multiple times. And has been around just dangerous circumstances, and then that happens, and it's like, man, you start questioning life, man. You start questioning God.
That's what I was going to ask.
Never question God, but you start asking, like, man, why? Like, what is this about? And it was just difficult to handle, as a teenager. I'm like, man, what in the world is I had, I didn't mention this and I didn't even write about it in the book, but I had, 3 friends who were shot and killed. You know what I mean? And like before the age of 20, I'm like, am I going to make it to 25? That's what began crossing my mind. Like, am I going to surpass? Am I going to go past 25? It seemed like something out there is trying to take us all out and pick us off. And you start having these thoughts, man, to where it gets morbid when you're surrounded by this stuff and you see, okay, man, you walk outside, hey, you hear about, D getting shot. Hey, you heard about, you don't even want to go to the barbershop because you hear them talking about somebody got shot last night. And it's just, you don't want to go outside after a while. And it was difficult to handle, man. Like I said, I just didn't even want to deal with life for a moment. I just wanted to kind of stay to myself and grow mold, man. It's just like, look, I just want to sit here and not do much. I didn't want to even play basketball. That was, if you know me personally, that's far left. I didn't care. I didn't, I had scholarship offers. I didn't care. That didn't mean anything to me. It was very difficult to handle, man, but I had to find a way to use that situation to grow from it.
Again, we're on with Joel Green. If you're listening up to this point, man, I hope you are, because his story is remarkable. He's got a book out. You can just go to his website, joelbgreen.com. Check out his Instagram. It's actually J-A-Y Green PLT. TEDx speaker, 7-figure entrepreneur, former professional basketball player. And right now, up until this point, we've just heard about all the tough times, because I want people to know. I want people to know what it's like, and also let you know, because he's here now and he's doing big things. He's continuing to do big things. So if you want some more information about Joel and his book and what he's doing, go to joelbgreen.com or just check him out on Instagram as well. jgreenplt. You can check out his book. It's available everywhere. Filtering: The Way to Extract Strength from the Struggle, as well. Just released. It's available where books are available.
Today's episode is brought to you in part by Wicked Happy. The way you live your life depends on your outlook, and theirs is simple. Be wicked happy. Wicked Happy provides you with apparel to make you smile. So if you want to be wicked happy and you want to look wicked cool, then visit wickedhappy.com, and at checkout, enter in the code RADIO for an additional 15% off your entire order. Again, visit wickedhappy.com. Apparel to make you smile.
Let's for me, I don't mean it's usually not, it's not about me, but one of the things that I say that kind of kept me from going down the wrong path, because I'm sure it was probably pretty easy for you to go that way if you wanted to, was athletics, right? It was sports, and my parents. So you have 2 parents that care, which is awesome. And then you had sports, and more specifically basketball. Talk about the importance of having that outlet to take you, because for me, I was always being taken out of the hood, right? I grew up in the hood, people, but I actually grew up in the hood too. It wasn't as bad, but it was pretty bad. So, when I played baseball or basketball or football, I was always being taken out of the neighborhood. Talk about the importance of that for you, and how that really also kind of helped navigate and really kind of point you in the direction of where your life is today.
Yeah, I mean, I have a shirt, it's a Nike shirt that says "Basketball saved my life," right? And I wore it one day, and somebody was like, "Really?" They didn't ask me anything. They said, "Really?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And apparently they read my shirt, and I'm like, "It really, it was a part of it for sure." I mean, basketball, it kept me off the street. It took me out of my neighborhood periodically, just like you said, and that's what I needed. I needed to get out of the environment, or at least just be indoors somewhere safe. And that's what it did for me. It put me in the gym, a structured place. And that's what I needed, man. I was going down, early, going down the wrong path, man, and getting in random fights on the block and stuff like that. I was copying and doing what I saw out in my environment, becoming a product of my environment. And then it wasn't a good path that I was on initially. And once I started playing basketball, I knew, like, man, I love this. I fell in love with basketball at 3 years old, like at a young age, after seeing this corny movie, which is my favorite movie, Teen Wolf, Michael J. Fox back in the day. And
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, come on.
yeah, that was my favorite movie. I watched it so much. My parents still tease me to this day of how, we put you had the VCR, the tape, the VHS, and you had to press the tracking button on it, you know what I mean? Because it's just like, it's looking all, staticky and everything. The tape didn't even work because I watched it so many times. But I just couldn't wait to finally do this thing like on a team. And once I started playing basketball, it was the perfect outlet for anger, for sadness, just for everything, man. It meant so much to me. And it was just poetic to me early on in life, to where I'm like, man, I can't wait to play basketball again tomorrow. I'm going to sleep like, man, with my basketball, I can't wait to play again tomorrow. And for me, it was an amazing, again, outlet to get my anger out. I was angry as a child, man. And my family, they tease me about it today. Like, man, you were a mean little kid, I'm like,
understandably.
Understandably,
Understandably.
Yeah, I mean, it was just, I didn't even know, and I wasn't bad, as far as going around messing with people, but they say I would just look at people mean, and, I would just not talk to people that may want to talk to me. And I do remember that, it just was, I didn't feel like dealing with people all the time, and I'm so glad that basketball just helped me out to soften that side up, but to channel it at the same time, to use it on the court. I was mean on the court, which became a great thing. And it was allowed, so that was the best part about it. And it just really helped me, man, to just really channel, the anger that I may have had and the sadness that I definitely had. And it was a blessing, man.
So let's talk about those years. So you're playing high school ball. I'm guessing that just a regular like high school, right? You didn't go to like a prep school or anything like that, right? Right? I would guess probably not.
Yeah, well, I ended up going prep.
I would say post grad. I'm going to guess post grad, maybe, right?
Exactly. Okay,
all right.
Exactly.
So because I know that story too, because I almost did the same thing.
Exactly.
But so you're playing high school, freshman, sophomore, junior year, and still you're still in the hood. You're still in a difficult situation. You're still surrounded by crime and crack and everything else. Did you always feel like maybe others were trying to pull you into that world? Maybe the people that you knew as friends of friends that were going down that path. Was it difficult for you to kind of stay away from those people? Because I mean, I still have friends, you want to call them that I grew up in the hood with, that still to this day are, involved in some sort of criminal activity. But it's weird. I still consider them my friends because I just grew up. We grew
Absolutely.
up together. Did you, was that a struggle for you to stay away from those kids?
I'll say this. I was fortunate, man. There were two people that helped with that a whole lot. Two of my older brothers. They got involved with things they, shouldn't have been involved with. But they always made sure that no matter what, I would not go down any wrong path. Like, they watched out for me so much. They put word out in the neighborhood. I'm serious, to make sure that other people stayed away from me. They had clout in the neighborhood, and they made sure that no matter where I was around, who may have been over at the basketball court, selling drugs or whoever, don't go at, they used to call me Lil Kev. Like, don't, my older brother's name, don't go at him with any of that. They kept people away from me. I felt safe at all times. It was relative. When they were around, I felt safe.
Yeah, sure.
But my friends were into the stuff. They were into drugs. I knew a couple carried weapons, and this is me at 15. You know what I'm saying? But I never felt like I had to go that route, because I knew, number one, I didn't want to upset my brothers. I didn't want to upset my family. And plus, the neighborhood also knew after a while, like, okay, he's the basketball. Like, we know who he is, and he's going somewhere with this. And I didn't feel like they tried to pull me in too much. Again, my brothers helped big time with that, keeping people away from me. But a lot of people, once I turned like 14, they saw that I had a future, potentially. He can make it out. And I had people start pushing me out in a good way, like pushing me toward getting out of the neighborhood. And fortunately, I had that backing from different guys in the neighborhood who I knew was into some stuff. but they actually started looking out for me, like, yo, I love your brothers, you know what I mean, this and that. You good, they would even tell me not to who not to go around and stuff like that. So
that's awesome.
They began looking out for me, man, and I was fortunate.
Because you hear the stories where it's the complete opposite, right? Where they try and drag you in. Hey, man,
absolutely.
Come hang with us. Let's go hang out with some broads or whatever. Let's go have fun, have a couple beers, smoke some weed, all that stuff.
Yep.
Okay, so you're 14. People are like, all right, this guy's a baller, literally. And he's obviously got some skills. I'm guessing even at that age, you're probably even starting to get looked at by colleges because you're probably making some waves. In Pennsylvania, are you do you start to get ranked nationally as a basketball player? When do you start to really get noticed? From on the collegiate level as you're still in high school.
I feel like I was still a late bloomer. Now I was able to still make the all-city team as a freshman, as a sophomore, but it wasn't in my eyes a super impactful. I'm also critical of myself. I didn't feel like it was super impactful comparatively to where I saw some guys doing some things on the court. And I'm like, whoa, I understand why they're on the all-city team. I understand why they have this or that ranking. So I had my internal rankings within the cities, nothing nationally at that point in time. But, it was a summer that I had to where I began working my absolute hardest going into my junior year. And I changed. I went to a couple camps and I was invited to a couple workouts, and that really helped my overall stock. And I never forget when I went to this one workout and I was invited, Eastern Invitational workout, which was pretty big. It was a pretty big camp, Eastern Invitational camp. And I went there and J.R. Smith was on my team there. We were all in high school at the time. I didn't know who he was. I never heard of him at the moment. I think he was a grade behind me. But I kind of discovered myself there at that point in time, that
you can play at that level, basically, right?
Yeah. And
was the competition it sounds like it, but was the competition pretty fierce even
yeah. I mean, growing up in Philly, it was constant. It was comp everywhere. You had guys that you will never ever hear of that I saw. I'm like, whew, they need a scholarship somewhere, and they just, they may have had bad grades and make it in school, dropped out of school, but these guys can hoop. And they would play in the summer leagues all the time with us. I mean, it was competition that was constant around the city, which I loved because growing up, in a city, you're not concerned with this whole national stuff. You want your neighborhood rep, you want your city rep, you're trying to play in the summer league so you can get your oohs and ahs, at the playground and stuff like that. That's all I wanted. So the moment I started getting that, I felt like I was on a high, man. I didn't care about the national rankings. And, however, once I, started to get some college letters and stuff like that, and it changed everything for me because I saw a true future with it. I'm like, wow, this really can take me to college. This is amazing. My first letter was from Yale. I'm like, this is amazing. I felt like I was
chills just hearing that, brother. That's awesome.
I was my dad still was on cloud nine about it. Like, remember you got that first letter from Yale? I'm like, yeah, it was amazing, man. And
so hold on, let me stop you a second. So your grades had to have been decent too then.
They were okay. I'll be honest. I'm like, why is Yale sending me a letter? My grade, I felt like I was a very, very good C student, right?
Right.
At the time. I was a very impressive C student.
Yeah.
But, it went up. I graduated with, on the honor roll, but I was a very impressive average student. That tried, though. I always tried. That's one thing with me. My teachers knew I was trying. Some things I just didn't comprehend for whatever reason. I also, I know in hindsight I could have put some more time in as a student during that point in time. But yeah, I got recruited by Yale, then got some recruitment letters from Princeton. And it's funny, it actually motivated me to get better in the classroom. Right. That's why I began working a little bit harder, getting recruited by these Ivy League schools and these D1 schools. So it was a pretty cool situation, man.
So, all right. So you get to your junior year. I don't know. Well, I mean, I do and I don't. So you get to your junior year where you're probably starting to really, really make some waves. Was it your senior year that was really your kind of breakout year? And tell us about that. So you're are you already looking at like, well, I want to go here, I want to play here. I don't even know where you went to college, and I can't wait to hear. But was it your senior year where you're starting to really get looked at?
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, going into my senior year, so I mean that summer was pretty big on the AAU circuit. I was making some good noise at the national tournaments, the big time tournaments over in Vegas as a 16-year-old, and all of a sudden I'm averaging over 20 something points and stuff like that.
Hold on, wait. So you were playing in some leagues in Vegas?
Yeah, yes. I mean, when I was 16,
all right, so let me ask you this:
yep,
who's paying for that stuff? Like, who's flying you out there?
the teams.
So that's
The
awesome.
teams. Yeah, the teams. I mean, so that was the beauty.
Did your parents worry about like being able to like afford that stuff? Because I remember I was a football player, so I remember and you mentioned AAU. I mean, I knew what AAU was, but not really. I mean, football, they didn't really have that type of stuff. They had it for basketball and baseball, obviously. But,
right.
So you're playing in the AAU, which is essentially like a club league, invite only.
Right, exactly.
And they're the ones who are like, all right, we want you to come play here, and flights and the hotels and all that stuff is taken care of.
My parents still had to foot the bill on some of the things,
stuff, right?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. But they took care of the major stuff, like my parents may have to kick in for, the flight,
right?
But the team took care of everything else to get us the sneakers and all this stuff, the hotels, and
you're treated like a king then too, right? Right?
Absolutely, man.
I mean, sneakers and windbreakers and sweats and hoodies.
You don't even realize it, right? Everything under the sun, man. You eat at some good places, even if it's the local buffet, man. We felt like we were, a bunch of kings, and Even again, when I was 16, I played in Vegas for a week, and I played for two AAU teams at the same time. I played with one team over in Vegas. The very next week, I had a tournament to be at in Florida. And I flew from Vegas to Florida to meet with my other team. So I was away from home for over 2 weeks, and just it was nuts, man. Just happened.
Were there any holes in the hotel rooms or mice climbing in your room?
Nah, look. They had us. We were over in the Luxor, man, over in Vegas. We were in the pyramid over there.
Yeah.
They had us living it up, man. This was
Where'd you play? Was it over at UNLV? Is that where it was, or?
Where did we played? We didn't have. No, it was at different high schools. I think that were over there. Okay. Yeah, some of the high schools, and it was fun, man. You had everybody over there. I remember again during my class, Joakim Noah and all these guys during that era. I'm 37, so it was like all those guys were. LeBron was over there.
So that's also the type of stuff too that I think is important for people to really understand, right? So like we talked about earlier, so how you kind of, you're brought out of the neighborhood, right? Mm-hmm. And you were able to see what life was like outside of the neighborhood, right? You were able to see what I would call rich kids, right? Or you would see, your coach might have a new car or something, which is probably nothing, which is probably just, like a Ford or something. But I remember looking at those people thinking, oh man, these guys are rich, or what are they doing? And how do I get involved in that? So you, like you said, when you got the letter from Yale and Princeton, you said, wow. So that seed was planted in your head that allowed you. And the beautiful part about it, right, is that it took with you, right? Because I'm sure, like you mentioned earlier, some of these other kids, it just didn't take with them, right?
Right. It really, I saw the potential of those things. I'm like, wow, okay. I knew it was also another way of escape. I'll be honest with you. It was like, okay, this is, as they say, my ticket. You know what I mean? I'll be honest. It was my ticket, and I saw that. So it motivated me that much more. So, keep working hard. Do everything you have to do to keep this going. It's not about not messing it up, but just make sure you make the best of the situation. And, having that perspective, I had that perspective early on. I'm like, I'm not worried about messing up. I never worry about messing up. I've been on the plane of just make the best of what I have going on, put as much time as I possibly can into it, and I'm gonna have a good result. And I had that mentality at 16, 17 years old, because I felt like I already come from a messed up situation. I'm not afraid to go back, so it just wasn't on my mind. I just wanted to keep moving out or keep moving forward as much as I could and make progress, man. And, going through that, again, as I mentioned, junior year, senior year, really increasing my stock around the country, stuff like that. It helped a whole lot. And, my senior year, I really began going off and went to the number one prep school in the country. And by that time, I
Hold on,
became
wait a minute. For basketball?
for basketball.
Wait,
Yeah.
wait, hold on. Was it in Maine?
No.
Wait, because there's a place in Maine that I think it's called MCT, I thought, or something like that. You know that one I'm talking about?
IMG, you're probably talking about? Well, no, IMG
out
is
of
in
Maine.
Florida.
It's out of Maine. They pump out a lot of like big time
Okay.
D1 players, but
Yeah, there's some staple schools, man. That
all right. So you get to your senior year, and so you do what they call post grad. People may or may not know what that means.
Mhm.
So you do another year. There's a couple reasons why.
Mhm.
One to just get your grades up, and then two also to even kind of increase your stock as an
Exactly.
athlete as well. But here's the interesting part about that, because for me, football is, by the way, I was good, but not as good as you. Like, as far as like, and I thought I could play D1, but then I went to a camp. The size I am now, I'm 6 feet 250. I was the same size in high school, maybe a little bit lighter. And I went to a camp and I realized, shit, like. I played with kids from Texas, Pennsylvania, Florida, and I'm like, they were it was just a whole nother world.
They're already grown men, right?
They're already grown men, just like huge kids growing up on farms and just I was big and fast and strong, but these kids were just far and away. They were just like superhuman. And these kids I'm talking about too, when I ended up playing college ball, there was definitely a lot of juice in there and stuff too. But these kids were just, most of them seemed natural. Like, I mean, they were just, if they wanted to eat beef, they just went out to their farm and killed the cow.
Right, exactly. Brought it back.
They probably picked the cow up and dragged it over.
What's funny is you said you're telling me that. So the school that I went to was Hargrave Military Academy, right?
Okay.
We were number one in the country for basketball and for football.
Oh wow!
So those beasts, those young grown men you're telling me about, I know a lot of them, and a lot of my guys, close friend of mine, Leonard Pope, he was a tight end in the NFL for a while. He was there, and when we were there, this guy was already 6'7", 245. I'm talking chiseled, man.
Right.
He would walk around with no shirt on all the time. Like if I was talking to him right now, he would just agree. Like, all right, I never wore a shirt. We'll be in the barracks, and he's just shirtless, just looking like a whole grown man. And my guy Ahmad Brooks, he was you may know him. He was tackle at NFL for a while.
Yeah.
Those guys were like, I'm there. I'm the skinny kid from Philly. I'm like, man, these guys got bodies on them. I'm trying to be in the weight room looking like them. And it was a sight to see, man. Guys again, like from Florida, from Georgia, all over the place. And it was an experience, man. I loved it.
So we ain't even got into the college part yet, but you brought up another point too. And you got time, right? We got time, yeah?
Got time. I'm good.
There's this kind of a wave of people, especially on social media, talking about how college might not be necessary, and a lot of people are talking about how the higher educational system is broken, and I agree to a certain extent that it is broken. But you also have these people out there that are kind of speaking from the rooftop, so to speak, about, hey, you shouldn't go to college, you don't need college, all these other things. Oh, Bill Gates dropped out, and this one and that one. These guys didn't go to college. But the thing that you just talked about too, and this is why I think it's important for people to really filter what people are saying on social media, is you just rattled off a few, NFL players, NBA players that are your friends now that you ultimately met when you were just kids. Mm-hmm. And you would have never had that opportunity if you hadn't have done that, right?
Right.
Because the academics is important and all that other stuff, but it's also about the relationships, right, that you got. And we'll get into college too, because I'm sure you had a bunch there as well. What are your thoughts on that as far as education in college and post grad, as far as being able to move forward in life?
It's situational, man. Per the individual, I feel like the option should be open to be able to do it. I know, for baseball, it's open, to be able to go pro, from high school, if you're capable, if you're able to actually execute, you have that. I like
what the NBA did, by the way, and basically said you have to be 21 or.
I think it's one. You have to be 1 year removed.
Okay. Yeah.
Total from high school.
Right.
Is the rule. So you don't have to go to college, but you can go play pro in Europe, something like that, then come back.
Right.
and be a draftee, but you have to be 1 year removed, and I believe still also 18 or something like that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Right.
So they changed that rule as opposed to allowing for more LeBrons and Kobe's and Kevin Garnett's to come out, which I'm still like, why? We have Hall of Famers who have successfully gone from, even the guy I mentioned earlier, J.R. Smith. I mean, he's had a successful career in the NBA.
Right.
Coming from high school. But I understand that money must be made on the college level, and the colleges were complaining, like, hey, you're actually taking from our pool of people that's generated billions for us, year after year. So on the back end, the college NCAA is meeting with the NBA and force their hand.
But do you feel like, just back to my question, do you feel like for you, like the friendships that you have now and the relationships and even the doors that have been open for you post your academic and your basketball career, a lot of those people are probably still with you and probably
absolutely
help you, right?
It was an invaluable, time, and like I wouldn't trade that time for anything.
Right.
For anything. I'm so glad I did go to college. Like that time period was such a defining moment for me. I was able to really find out who I was as an individual, being around cultures that I've never been around before, just environments, finding discipline away from home. Like college, I endorse it. You know what I mean? It's important. It's key. It's a life-changing moment. It's things that you can do on a college campus that you cannot do in society. You know what I mean? That you just can't get away with. It's things that you can just try out and figure yourself out with, to where it's like, okay, by the time I'm out in society as a regular civilian, now I know how to act. You know what I mean?
So you go post grad, finish there. Where did you end up going to college, and also what were your options? Like, where were you considering?
So for me, the reason going post grad was I had the grades already. A lot of times, as you know, you may need the SAT score, the ACT, things
I
like
didn't.
that. But you know the process as far as with the PG year and stuff like that.
Actually, hold on before you tell me that, because one of the things for me is I didn't have the grades.
Okay.
But with usually with most postgraduate programs, you can't get financial aid. So how did that work?
Right.
So your parents
they helped out as far as school still helped out with a good chunk of they couldn't call it a scholarship,
right?
But I forget.
They made it happen.
Right, exactly. My parents had to put up a little bit, but they helped out in a major way. They saw the situation that we come from, and they do whatever magic they can behind the scenes to make it happen for us to get there.
Right.
And got the PG, got the post grad year, had an amazing time. I was MVP of the championship game. Like 27 points, and like finished in an amazing way. We would go around. We played.
Did you guys play? So where was the school?
This was in Chatham, Virginia.
Okay, so did you play mostly on the East Coast, or did you play all over the country?
Yeah, we played mostly on the East Coast. We play our Oak Hills, like where Carmelo Anthony went, and we play Mountain Zions where Tracy McGrady went. Those type of schools. We play a lot of JVs of the ACC schools.
Sure.
So we would go. We went and played at Chapel Hill in the Dean Dome against North Carolina's JV squad. We played and Wake Forest against their JV squad. And so we're playing against men, these guys, young men who were like 20, 21 years old that couldn't make the varsity team at Chapel Hill and Wake Forest. And we're blowing them out. We're winning by 20 points against these 20-year-olds. And we're laughing on the court at 17 or 18 years old. And and I was young too. I graduated high school at 17, so that's why I did the PG year. I'm like, okay, I can do another year of development. I already had D1 looks, but I just wanted to get some ACC looks. I was greedy. I'm like, I want to get some of those. I still wanted to be like Mike and maybe get looked at by Carolina and stuff like that. And I started getting my Clemson looks. I got my Wake Forest looks. They were recruiting me, and it got to a point to where different college coaches were like, man, you can play high D1. Or, it was a college coach from Siena, in New York, D1, great D1 school, mid-major school, said, look, man, I know you're being talked to about all these different, big schools, but I think you can be, a big fish in a smaller pond. That may work out in your favor. Right. And amazing recruiter. I mean, he recruited some big-time players. He used to coach at University of Texas. You got TJ Ford down there, Corleone Young, all these players. he recruited the mess out of me. When I mentioned Vegas and Florida earlier, when I was playing in Vegas, he was at all my games. All of a sudden, when I'm in Florida, he was at all of my games. The very next week, he followed me all around the country. So I'm like, okay, this guy really wants me.
Right.
And he pulled me, and I went to a mid-major school in New York, and
what is it called? What is it?
Siena.
Yeah.
Okay. Siena College.
So was it a D1 athletic program? Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Division I school. They were, one of the best in the conference. The MAC conference, and I got there and was projected to be one of the best freshmen in the conference and all that stuff. And I tore my hamstring freshman year, man. So I couldn't even play.
Of course
right.
you did.
Yeah,
I was waiting for a hit. I didn't know that. I was waiting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's all right. So you it's funny. A lot of people, right? They get to that point in high school or post grad and they peak for life in life. That's it, right?
Right.
It's such a difficult thing because you're 16, 17, 18 years old and you're like literally king of the world. And then it all comes crashing in. So you okay, so you tear your hamstring your freshman year.
Yeah.
What was that like mentally for you? Because you're like, man, I made it. I'm out of the hood now. Like I'm here I am, and then this happens. Was that, I mean, were there moments where you're like, man, this is
it
right.
It was challenging mentally, because I couldn't wait to play,
Right.
I was excited. I went through all, I already was a year removed from high school by that point. So I already was thinking, man, I can't wait to finally get to college. Right. And I get there, boom, the summer, like literally that fall, I tore my hamstring during preseason training. And so I had to sit out and redshirt the entire season and watch my team play and practice every day. It was boring for me to have to sit in every practice and watch. So it helped those boring moments helped me though, because I'm like, okay, find a way to be on board. So I would begin sitting in a chair and still doing ball handling and just doing form shooting from the chair. And it helped me see a technical side of the game that I didn't discover by that, up to that point. So I was able to learn even through that process.
So the cool thing, I guess, if there is one about it, is that you were able to redshirt, which if people don't know, basically it basically gives you another year of eligibility, even after you graduate. So you weren't necessarily missing out, so to speak.
Right.
So there's a little bit of saving grace there, but it's also interesting too, like what you said, when people go through these difficult moments, and I feel like that's a difficult moment. I didn't have the exact same thing, but I had something happen to me my sophomore year, and I ended up sitting out the season, but and it was a really tough time for me mentally. But you saw the silver lining, so to speak. Yeah. You're like, oh, okay, well, if I can't dunk, then maybe let me just work on some of my technical things that I can do from the chair. That I wonder about that moment for you and the way you thought, because I wonder if that was something that, I don't think it's genetically in people. I think it is learned, right? I think you just through your adversity and through the things that you saw, you feel the same way. Do you feel like you're like, all right, I made it this far. Like, you know what I mean? I might as well try to make the best of this, right? Is that something that was instilled in you from your parents or your coaches or all that stuff? Because at a young age like that, you could easily just, I mean, you're on college, like you said, you could tear it up in college. You're still a basketball player. You could just party and take the year off, but you
right. I mean, that was it to a T. I mean, I had, I was on the phone with my family a lot. It was a tough time. So I'm like, man, they're just calling me, trying to encourage me, like, hey man, it's gonna be okay. Just do your best with this. And they didn't even know what to tell me half the time. And I'm like, you can't tell me to get on the court and practice. It's like that was always my great distraction. Away from the difficulties around me, it was to get on the court and perform. I didn't have that distraction anymore. So I had to just think about this stuff. And I'm like, man, I just had to just be surrounded by it. And, one of my coaches.
Can I ask you, because during that time, are you still going to all the practices and stuff?
Yep. I still had to be at all the practices or therapy. So I'll be at either therapy or practice, but practice the majority of the time.
Right. Okay. I was just curious because that's usually how it is.
It was again, it was boring until I learned I need to be learning more from what I'm watching. And again, it was me as a youth. I just didn't realize how much I could be taken in from just watching the game and becoming a student of the game like never before. And that's what began happening. I started seeing mannerisms of the coach that I had never recognized before. I started seeing the game, honestly, as one of the coaches. And it was a blessing in disguise. You know, I started to just really see the college game from a different level. You know, it sucked in the end there because during that time, the coach actually recruited over me, you know, going into the next year. And because he was upset that I didn't play because I was cleared just before I think it was the 13th game. And that's the NCAA rule. If you're cleared, you can play. I'm like, nope. I'd rather keep this red shirt and have a full freshman season so I can get my accolades that I was trying to originally get.
Oh, that was my question. So if you had played, you would have given up the red shirt.
Yeah, exactly. So that would have removed the whole status of the red shirt.
Oh, yeah.
But I already missed 12 games, and that's almost half the season in college. You know what I mean? So I'm like, Coach, I already missed half the season. And he was upset by my decision that I made.
Well, let me start right there for that too, because man, it's crazy like how some of the similarities that you and I had. So especially if the coach really wanted you, right?
Right.
Wanted you to play, you making that decision can actually put your career in jeopardy, right? Because the coach, even though they'll never admit it, may decide that he's not going to give you the opportunity because you really are at the mercy of the coach, no matter how good you are, right?
Absolutely.
So, and I'm sure you probably even knew that at the time. So you make that decision to not play. He's definitely not happy with you. Now you go into your sophomore year as as a freshman at athletically.
Right.
Did you have to work harder? Was your coach giving you shit? Was he like not really giving you the playing time that you deserve?
Man, he stopped talking to me.
Yeah.
It was it was bad. He didn't, it wasn't the happy coach that he once was with me coming putting his arm around me. Hey, how's it going? It stopped. You know, the moment I said, hey, coach, I would want to have a full freshman year as opposed to, an abbreviated freshman year.
And you're by the way, I'm sorry, you're on an athletic scholarship too?
Full athletic scholarship. I'm not paying a dime. Nobody's paying anything from my side. So I'm having all the perks and he just turned a blind eye to me and recruited over me. And
is that now? So here's the weird thing about that. I played D2 and then we went to D3. So but like I understand, I guess, like his thought process, because basically, right, because there's only so many spots and there's only so many scholarships you can give.
Exactly.
So you get one and you take a spot maybe from somebody. You did take a spot from somebody else.
Did.
That's just the way the world is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I can understand him being the way he was, but also you're a kid, man.
I'm
right?
a kid, right?
It's like and you made the right decision, but that decision, like we're getting at right now, was a difficult decision that created even probably more adversity for you, because if the head coach is the one who makes the decision. By the way, I made a similar decision for me, and it basically fucked my football career. So and I wasn't going pro or anything like that, but I just
still, right, you still had a career in college.
Yeah. Okay, so now it's your sophomore year. He's not talking to you. What do you do? How do you keep your composure too? I think, right? Because like I'm guessing he probably didn't start you in the beginning or what have you. I don't even know. I don't know the story, but what was that like? Because again, because for me, I'm thinking about your life and your career and where you're at. It's just a remarkable thing. And you're like, it's like, it reminds me of like Eric Thomas. It's like, you made it now. You made it.
Right.
You're here, man. You're here. Now you wanted to. I love that speech, by the way. But
right, me too.
So you're there and you're like, shit, like, what am I supposed to do? Because you're at the mercy of the coach.
I'm at the mercy of the coach, man. That was the reality. And I realized that in that very moment, like, this dude really don't like me anymore. Like hey, Mike, he was my best friend, man. He's the one that got me into psychology. That was his major in college. We were having talks all the time. All of that stuff. I remember the when I said, hey, coach, because he sold me on a dream, right? When he recruited me, he sold me like, man, you can get into college. You can be, a freshman of the year. You can get at least a few freshman of the weeks and all this type of stuff. I couldn't wait to achieve those things. And so he got me on that dream. And the moment I saw a quarter of the season going away, then almost half the season going away, I'm like, okay, I already was, in the mode of thinking next season, next year.
So are we talking your sophomore year now?
No, this was still my freshman year. So, the moment I told him, hey, I'd rather sit out, he just turned a blind eye. The next year, no matter what I did, he wasn't trying to even play me, and that was the difficult part. And I'll be honest, I said, okay, I snapped a couple of times, was thinking, Coach, what's up? Like, you're literally acting like I'm not even existing here. And, just a year ago, you recruit me, follow me all over the country. But like you said, I mean, they don't see it that way. I'm a kid at the time, but it's so business to where you just, it's just treated like a material thing almost. You're an investment, and that's just all it is. Forget your age, forget what your true situation is. I end up leaving mid-year, man.
Okay. So that's wow. Okay, so that's what I can't wait to hear more about that.
I left.
Yeah, because I remember even again, I was D2, but like I didn't really have as many options as you. But okay, so that's a massive decision.
I left,
so you get recruited by this guy. This guy gets you in. You get a full ride.
Yep.
You're still poor. Your parents are still the same. There's like, and now you're again living like a king up until that point, and then you left.
I left. Because mentally, it started getting to me, man. I'll be honest. It was getting to me bad. I was just, it got to the point to where I even, my teammates didn't even know how to associate with me anymore. And I didn't even know how to associate with them.
You're treated, and again, I know the exact feeling. You're literally treated like a pariah, an outcast. It's like, you're not even a part of the team anymore.
Right.
It's like, I mean, it's truly like the animal kind of mentality where if you're in a pack and one of the elks, or gazelles is injured, they just leave them.
Right.
Later, and then you're like, whoa, like what's going on? We were boys now. Now all of a sudden, just because I'm injured, now I'm just treated like literally like a second-class citizen. Mentally, again, I know exactly what you're talking about.
I mean, because the players started taking on the coach's perception of me. And that just wasn't the reality. That wasn't the truth. So the moment I started to see how the coach perceived me, and he conditioned my teammates to see me the same way, I'm like, this is not healthy. This is not good. Because now all of a sudden I'm seen as less than when I know I'm better than a lot of you guys. You know what I mean? And I show it every time we would put, do our stuff behind the scenes away from the team practice. We're playing pickup and we're doing all these things. I'm like, I'm just out there doing my thing. But, me leaving was the best thing in the world, man. I ended up going down to a junior college. Again, I left the lavish life of a D1, athlete, went into junior college. That was the only way I can keep playing. The NCAA said I can't transfer into another D1 school, which is what I was going to do. Because then I had the red shirt. That was the rule. D1 to D1, you have to sit out a year. I'm like, I just sat out. I'm not trying to do that again.
Right.
So they said, you got to go into a 2-year institution. That's the only way you can keep playing. I said, sign me up. I just want to play basketball.
Right.
So I went down to a school in Texas, won a national championship. And it was like blessing in disguise. Boom. I'm glad I made that decision. And it wasn't.
And the other part too is like, I'm just thinking because I have a 16-year-old who plays soccer and she's dealt with some adversity with literally right now.
Mm-hmm.
You, like you just said, you just wanted to play basketball. But you probably, even though you weren't playing, like at Syracuse or whatever, you still had a lot of fun, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That was the thing, right? That's a big part of it. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I was having a ball in college, man. Even during that time, that was the best distraction for me from the injury. It was like, just still have a good time. The teammates that I did hang out with, they were like, yo, let's just, let's have fun, man. We know this is boring. We know this is whack, but, let's just have a good time. And, it was tough to leave the guys that I did love on the squad, but I had to make that choice, man. And I'm glad I did. And like I said, won a national championship down in JUCO circuit, Division I JUCO, which is the best in the country. We went over to Hutchinson, Kansas, and won the whole thing. And I still had to do a second. It was nuts, man. It was a journey. Like the NCAA said, in order to get back to the D1 level, hopefully, get back to that level, you have to do 2 years at a 2-year institution. I'm like, all right. So I had to do a second year. And I wanted to be closer to home at this point, just so my family can at least be around my family at this point. And I went to a school in Maryland, another JUCO, won another national championship. And that's when I knew, okay, don't second guess your gut, man. Like, you making some moves right now, and it wasn't you at that D1 school. You know, I'm not one to blame anybody or blame shit, but I knew when I won that second national championship, and I found I was like one of 4 people to ever do that, to win one at 2 different institutions. I'm like, okay, I'm making good moves. Keep making these moves. Keep working your absolute hardest, man. And I had to do a whole lot of self-talk. I'll be straight up with you, Mike. It was because mentally I started getting like an identity crisis, man. All this movement, you know, going from your prep school. You know, I went to 2 different high schools, you know, then prep school, then D1, and these 2 different JUCOs. I'm like, I gotta know who I am. I gotta stay steady and constant in who I am as an individual, as a person, and as a player. To where I just told myself, just follow my gut, man. Just keep working hard in the process. And that got me back to Division I for my final 2 years.
So your final 2 years, where did you end up?
Rider University.
Okay.
And you know, those are my brothers to this day. Like, literally, that's, you know, the guys I graduated with. It was 4 of us. We have a group chat every day, man. One of my guys, he was in the NBA, recently retired for a while, and you know, it's just that I'm so glad at the moves that I made, man. Went all around the map to get it done, but we got it done.
So I want to talk to you in a minute about your professional career. Where was it? What happened there? I have a kid I went to high school with who played overseas for a long time. Actually, you might even know him. So again, we're on with Joel Green, man. I tell you, I'm just loving this conversation, man. I hope all of you love this conversation as well. You know, you hear about people's stories and their comeback stories, and also that's going to be the second podcast that we're starting, called From the Storage Locker, by the way. If you'd like some more information about Joel and what he's doing, you just go to joelbgreen.com. You can also check him out on Instagram, jgreenplt. You can also pick up his book that just came out, best-selling book. It's available wherever books are available, Filtering: The Way to Extract Strength from Struggle. And it's exactly what we're talking about here. A lot of that stuff, and there's a lot of stuff that he actually said today he didn't even put in the book. So I'm pretty excited. So if you want to learn more about him and pick up his book and support him, check out that book. You know, a lot of people just go right to Amazon. You can check it out as well. If you go to joelbgreen.com, you can get it from there as well. So, all right. So, okay. So you graduate college professionally. Where'd you play? Did you play overseas, or where'd that go? How'd that happen?
Yeah, so I started off overseas, man, playing in Ireland, and it was a heck of an experience playing over there. You know, undrafted, you know, as far as into the NBA, which is obviously the dream and the goal of everybody under the sun. Didn't happen. I was cool with it. By that point, I already been competing, you know, during the summer times with a lot of guys from overseas. They gave me a heads up of what it was about, playing in Europe, playing in South America. I was ready for it, you know, and I would still work out with different NBA guys that I knew, you know, back in Philly during the summer months and stuff like that. I was working out with NBA guys, you know, Allen Iverson, Lou Williams, since my sophomore year at college, you know. So I was been around great talent, you know, every off season. So I would hear from them just how it was at the next level. So I was just ready for whatever.
So when I think about professional sports, I mean, I think I'm going to be right with the statement. I'm sure you agree. The NBA has to be the hardest professional sport to make it on a team, right? Because don't you only? I mean, isn't there only like 11 players or something like that?
It's limited. Yeah, it's very limited. 11 to 12.
Yeah, I mean, football you're in the 50s, and baseball, I don't know what the number is, but so you really only have just a small number.
Yeah.
When people make NBA teams, I don't even know. Are there like practice squads on NBA teams like in professional football? Can you make like the Celtics and not sit on the bench? Is there
well, now the practice squads are, you know, you can call it that. That wasn't the case before.
Yeah. But
there were still guys that had the ability to be on this team, but it just wasn't enough space, so they made the NBA Development League.
Okay, that's right. Okay.
So that's what they have as far as the G League now. You know, pretty much the minor league.
Right.
You know, for the NBA, and you know, I had a development league contract at one point. You know, when I was working out with the Sixers, I was training with the Sixers for a couple months, and you know, that didn't pan out. But you know, yeah, the G League is a solid opportunity for guys. You don't make much money,
right?
But you know, you're able to be seen by, the affiliated NBA teams on a nightly basis.
Right. Yeah, and they do bring guys out of there. I mean, it's rare though, right? But
Right. It's not that often. You'll see guys get called up for a 10-day contract,
right.
From time to time, but you can also be stuck in the cycle of the G League, the development league, because it's just, you can be forgotten about in there. So I decided to actually turn down my contract in the D League and go to Europe. I just said, I'm gonna go make my money. I'm young, and I wasn't as pressed for the NBA by that point. I just really wanted to be a pro athlete.
How long did you do that for?
I did it for a short period of time because I wanted to go in business. So I did it for about 4.5 to 5 years.
That's a decent amount of time.
Yeah, absolutely. It was enough for me to be in about 4 different countries, man. It was.
Yeah, I got to travel, see the world, right?
Exactly, man. And, I got to just appreciate other cultures. Being around other people and just it felt good to be cheered on in languages I didn't even understand. You know what I mean? It was just like this is pretty cool. And the European environment, even in South America where I played, it's a soccer-like environment in the arena. You know how loud the soccer games are? They had their horns and things like that. That was in the arena. So the noise was just bonkers half the time. I loved it though. The energy was crazy. The kids were just nuts. They went crazy when they saw you, even coming from the supermarket. They flooded you. So, I felt like I was Jordan in some areas, man. It was really cool situation. But I was ready to transition in some form of fashion. I always wanted to do my own thing. So I got my business license while I was in Europe playing.
Nice. So let's I want to jump to so let's talk about your book, Filtering, the way to extract strength from struggle. So we talked a lot about this. Here we are today. Like you said, you're 37. Is this your first book?
This is my first book.
You've given a TEDx speech, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
On the same premise, kind of?
In a way, but not exactly. What I chose to speak on, again, this was, just following George Floyd and a lot of situations that was going on during that time, Breonna Taylor. So I wanted to speak on equality because I just felt like so much of the world, more so this country was just breaking up, breaking apart. Like it was like black versus white, and I felt like we were going backward, being honest with you. So I said, if I'm going to have this stage, I got to speak on something that's really going to be felt and make a change, hopefully. So I named my talk 3 essentials, for equality. And I just gave 3 steps that we can all make, as a country toward gaining greater equality and unity. And I brought up, just the violence that may have been going on. I brought up the, different police incidents that were going on. And, I just told myself, but don't be afraid to talk about these things. It's already being discussed on the news and all these different outlets on social media. Hey, bring it up. So, but bring it up for the sake of change, as opposed to just bringing it up and emotionally being upset about it. So that's the route that I took. And I heard some amazing feedback from people. It was really encouraging. And felt like it was a great talk.
I'm gonna have to check it out. I didn't check it out. I feel bad that I didn't check it out. I apologize. So, all right. So the book, Filtering, the way to extract strength from the struggle, just released it. Tell me about that process. How long did it take you to write the book? Did you get a publisher? Were you trying to find a publisher? Like, tell me a little bit about that process.
Yeah, it was 6 years in the making, man. I was writing the book for over 6 years. And, I got serious about it the last 2 year stretch of it. And that's actually how I started off the book, as far as, an incident situation that occurred that just made me get serious about it. A situation that I had to filter. And again, the filtering itself was just a method I came up for myself, maybe back in 2014, 15, to where I was going through just a number of things, man, marital troubles and, being a father at the time and just going through all these things. It was a difficult time period where I was seeking a whole lot of answers, man. And I began reading 9 books every 3 weeks. It was just seeking all, the answers I can get, and just came up with a way to get something from what I was going through, as opposed to just getting through this stuff or brushing my situations off as if they don't exist. So I found a way to just really begin using my situations against themselves, and to also propel me beyond the situation itself. And that's where I said that extraction process comes from. And it's been amazing ever since, man, to just speak it from the stage. And that's when I began writing. I'm like, okay, I can see the impact it's having on people when I'm speaking from the stage, talking to an organization or a school. I have to put it in black and white in some form of fashion. And I just began writing the book, and it came by way of me having this Word document to where I would just write on certain topics at first, and I would just contribute to it again. And then, I kind of named what this book was going to be. I knew it was going to be filtering about 6 years ago. And I kind of got tired of myself not taking this book serious, in 2019. And I once I got serious, I made it a part of my job. I made it a part of my schedule every day. I said, okay, every morning, since you're already waking up at, 4:30, 4:45 or 5, make sure this is going to be one of those things you do an hour and a half after you wake up, after you pray, after you work out, after you have your breakfast. Start writing this book for a good hour and walk away. If you have another 30 minutes to contribute to it, do it again. And that's what I did, man. I decided to go that route. And once it was complete, I self-published. And so I can have, full freedom, to be honest with you. I spoke with a couple of publishers, one hybrid publisher, was super interested. I'm like, wasn't a fan. It wasn't like the advances were going to be anything crazy. I said, I'm a self-publisher, having full freedom. There were things that I wanted to do, which I'm glad I did, that they may not have known what to do with. I had an amazing book trailer created, a 3D animated book trailer. And then, Mike, I'm telling you, everything that we discussed, for the most part, this convo, you'll see in that book trailer. It's the same as if you were watching Toy Story or Moana. It's that level of animation. And I just thought it would be an innovative idea to market the book. And it's been getting amazing feedback. I didn't think it would get this type of feedback, but it really gave people a glimpse into the book. I figure when a movie's coming out, movie trailers, that are really compelling. I said, I want to have a book trailer that's really compelling. And it was about a 6.5-month production, the whole DreamWorks process. It was amazing.
Wow, man. Unfortunately, actually, I am running out of time. I'm up against time, and because I could just talk to you for hours. Man. we didn't even get into you're the national director of Nike sports camps. We didn't even talk about, your pro level training, the things you're doing there. I'm just gonna have to have you back. We're gonna have to. I mean, I've had guests back before, and so I think you're gonna have to be one of them. So, man, I just want to thank you, for your time, and I think that people, if you've listened up until this point, you have to be inspired by what Joel is doing and what he continues to do in his story, man. Like, look, it's exactly what he's the type of people we have here on the podcast, on the Alden Report, and soon to be also our new one called From the Storage Locker. We want to have real people that are doing real things, that are making a real impact, and that's exactly who he is. So if you'd like some more information about what he's doing, his book, I got to check out that trailer as well. Go to joelbgreen.com. Again, it's joelbgreen.com. You can also check out his Instagram. It's actually jgreenplt. And his book that he just talked about, it's called Filtering, The Way to Extract Strength from the Struggle. It's available wherever books are available. My name is Mike Alden. That's Joel Green, and we'll see you soon.
Today's episode is brought to you in part by Wicked Happy. The way you live your life depends on your outlook, and theirs is simple. Be wicked happy. Wicked Happy provides you with apparel to make you smile. So if you want to be wicked happy and you want to look wicked cool, then visit wickedhappy.com, and at checkout, enter in the code RADIO for an additional 15% off your entire order. Again, visit wickedhappy.com, apparel to make you smile.